going on? What's going on, guys? We are here. I got Tom here. Tom, you here? There he is. I don't know why that just happened. Let's just go ahead and switch out real quick. What's going on, Tom? How you been,
Coach.
Man?
Okay, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How's everything going on your side, bro?
Getting better? And then how's things with your folks?
Things are good, man. Everybody's stable. My parents are moving forward through rehab. And right now I'm just fighting over a little illness myself. So I'm trying to get on the mend now. So it just doesn't stop, man. So right now we're just on the mend, trying to make things happen and, moving forward. But right now, I'm glad that we finally had some Niners news. We absolutely have some movement with the Niners. I mean, just off of how you've been seeing things play out, man. Just like initial thoughts before we get into it. What was your reaction? Where were you? What were you doing? I want the whole nine. Talk to me.
I'm just going through my day, and then all of a sudden I see on Twitter that Niners extend McCaffrey, and I shake my head in pain. Basically, that's what happened. He earned it, but they're going to pay a price for this down the road. Is my thing. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about. But I like the Logan Ryan signing. They need a tight end too. So it's interesting what's going on, but there's still a lot of unfinished business.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. There's implications galore. Let's go ahead and just put it out there. There's implications all over the place. And right now, the way I see it is we're just trying to figure out exactly where we stand. Right. So my biggest thing is understanding, where we stand with exactly how this entire thing played out. Right. So let's just start it from the top, man. Running back Christian McCaffrey, the NFL's reigning offensive player of the year. He reset the running back market. He reset the running back market for the second time in about 4 years, signing a 2-year contract extension with the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners announced the deal, but didn't disclose financial terms on Tuesday afternoon. Not long after, sources told ESPN's Adam Schefter that the deal, which averages $19 million over 2 added years, was done. In addition to the 2 extra years of 2026 and 2027, the Niners added $8 million over what McCaffrey was scheduled to make in 2024 and 2025, while adding $24 million in guarantees, $20 million in guarantees from sources that we saw. His agency negotiated the contract, which follows the 2020 pact that he signed with the Carolina Panthers, in which he also set the record for running back compensation. So this is just more of the same. Him and his agency group, they have already seemed to have already had their own MO on how they're going to move forward with Christian in his career. And right now, it looks as though that Christian was right on track with what he wanted. 4 years, Christian, we're going to have him going into his 30s. Christian is 28 years old now, I believe. And you just got to ask, how do you feel about it?
Well, initially, I think it'll still work for them, at least in terms of this year, that you'll get a very motivated Christian McCaffrey. The problem is that what does this signal to the entire team in the way that the Niners are going to go forward in dealing with their aging vets? Is this what they're going to do? And we'll take that up a little bit later in the show. But for this move, it's a now move, and I understand, as College Chipto says in the chat, that they have an out in 2 years for $8.5 million. They do, but this is still, you have to consider the cumulative effect of this, not just McCaffrey alone. And that's going to be a concern going forward. But for Christian, he earned it. He got the money, and now we'll see. But history says once you turn 30, it doesn't turn good, that running backs hit the wall. And there is an exception, Frank Gore, but look at his body type. He's a tree trunk. And he can deal with taking a lot of hits and lasting. Now, he's basically a fire hydrant. so he's going to have an extended career just based on body type. Will McCaffrey, he takes very good care of his body, as Shanahan pointed out. But can he hold up? Given the touches, given how much he's getting the ball, I think that's pretty iffy as far as what's going to happen to Christian once he does turn 30. What's his mileage going to look like at that point? What's the age of the offensive line in front of him? Do you feel confident in a 30-year-old Christian McCaffrey running behind a 38-year-old Trent Williams? That's a concern. And that's where this team is headed. That's my worry, is just that this is going to be their answer for the aging core. Pay him. And that carries a lot of problems. But for Christian, he earned it. He should have a great year if he can stay healthy, and we'll see how it goes.
I understand that, and I have the same sentiments. What I do want to do is stop really quickly to let everybody know that's watching the chat. The link is in the bio for the poll that's over my shoulder on whether or not the Niners are going to re-sign Brandon Aiyuk before training camp, yes or no. So just go into the description of the link, and you'll go to a link and be able to putting your vote for the poll, and we'll get to that subject at the end of the show. So the link for this question that's going to be over my shoulder is right inside of the description. It should be there, so you guys can go ahead and start voting, and we'll tally the votes at the end of the show.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm trying, bro. Look, I'm trying to bring stuff to the platform. I'm not just pressing record, Tom. We are trying to give the fans something, interactive, man. We want to be able to give them something different. And also, it's a monkey see, monkey do type world and type industry. Wow. And I just want people to understand that by the end of when you start seeing other people do it, you just know that Coach did it first. When people start bringing out the interactive backgrounds, Coach did it first. When people start coming out with these layouts, Coach did it first. Like, this stuff takes work, guys. It takes work. So
it does. You've worked hard on it, but it shows.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really cool. It's just you're on the edge, you're creating stuff, and you're trailblazing.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I'm coachable. I'm here. No pun intended, man. So, but yeah, I definitely understand exactly where you're coming from with the Christian McCaffrey deal. Like, is he deserved? Is he deserved of the deal? Yes. Right. Is he a guy who's going to be able to? If he's a guy that's going to be able to earn his money, yes. But now at the clip of 19 per. It's just going to be a different ball game. I got to see how he's going to be used. Making the type of money that he's making, you would say that he's the leader of the offense right now. But we got another guy coming around where Brock Purdy may have something to say about that when he gets paid. So that's a whole nother situation. So really, man, it's. I'm trying to get you guys to like understand that, the Christian McCaffrey deal, it hits in a lot of different ways, right? And the reason why I flatly asked if it was going to be a good move or a bad move is because I wanted it to be put plainly out there where people can see that it's contextual, right? Like, you could be looking at this from a Brandon Aiyuk perspective and be saying to yourself, this is a bad move. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. I got a deal on the brink, and you guys prioritize this guy. Like, that says some things, right? But from a team standpoint, this is a good move, where you can say to yourself, like, hey, man, this is a guy that we're rewarding. He was the leading rusher in the year, leading rusher in football last year, offensive player of the year. There's a lot of things that you could say where Christian deserves the money. But at the same time, you could also look at it from a standpoint of longevity. From an attrition standpoint, we're kind of walking around with a grenade of a contract, because running backs don't gradually come off. They fall off. We know this, right? Right. So you're looking at that aspect. Then you're looking from the aspect of, before we get Brock paid, I don't want to see Christian McCaffrey as slot. You know, did you get paid at $19 million a year as a running back, or did you get paid $19 million a year to be just another weapon, right? Like, I want to be able to have Christian McCaffrey in the guy to have it down. It's like for all intents and purposes, the way we look at Nick Bosa on gotta have it downs is pretty much like matter of factly. Like there's nobody giving him any breaks for what he makes. You know,
it's expected.
From a running back perspective, I think the point that I'm trying to make is I feel like that's this type of territory, right? If you're making this type of money as a running back, you're kind of in no excuses territory. When it comes down to, all right, we need 1 yard. We better not be on 3rd and 1. We better not be in 5 wide. We better be giving the ball. We better be turning the ball and giving it to our stud, right? So, that's one aspect of it that I feel as though that, you know, isn't necessarily going to be harped on. But for the money, you know, I feel like there's a responsibility there that Christian is met, but there's also now an added responsibility for the entire coaching staff, ergo, honestly, Kyle, to keep him upright, because now that's a huge piece of hardware coming off the field. And you know what? I'm going to tell you this. Just as, you know, the irony of it all is we've been praying all year for Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason to get love. What if the year that we find that we pay Christian, he gets hurt and that's our backfield all year?
Actually, I wouldn't mind that. I want to see Jordan Mason in a feature role. I think he would shine.
Right.
But you don't want to be forced into that situation. You want to have the option of being able to go with whoever. Mm-hmm. But you know, Kyle said in the press conference, I need to save Christian from himself. Okay, start proving it. You know, it's one thing to say all this stuff, and we'll all agree with you. I mean, it's if you feature Christian and then you use Jordan Mason, we're all going to be forming a conga line around Levi's. We'll love it. But will you do that? No, because what serves your game plan best? Christian McCaffrey on the field, because that's who the defense will look at and focus on. And so this is on Kyle as much as it's on Christian, that you have to protect your asset. You're saying that we're going to get this guy going, and he's going to maintain this level for the next 4 years or close. And so if that's the case, you have to take care of him. You've got to use the entire backfield. Mm-hmm. You can't afford to give Christian this level of usage rate. You can't just throw him into the wood chipper like he did this year. You have to balance out the carries. You have to balance out the touches. Will Kyle do that? I seriously doubt it. I think that this year is going to be about optimizing their chances of making the Super Bowl. Kyle's going to go all out to make it, and that means Christian on the field as often as possible.
Man. Well, just to take a break real quick, for those of you who are just coming into the chat, we're sitting here. The topic right now is how do we move forward with Christian McCaffrey, having him for 4 years, and what are the backup roles now? What are the backups' roles now in taking over more tough carries? But for now, the last topic of the show is the poll that's over my shoulder right here, which is, did the 49ers re-sign Brandon Aiyuk before a training camp, yes or no? Just click the link in the bio, in the description. The poll link is in the description, and we're going to be able to talk about this as the last topic of the show. You guys go ahead and vote, and it'll give us real-time results during the show, and that's the way we'll look at it. So moving into the next topic, Jordan Mason. Okay, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell, Isaac Guerendo. How do you see us shaping out the backfield this year? Because Christian can't have all of the carries this year. We can't tip him at damn near 500 carries a season. It cannot happen. It just wouldn't even be smart to move forward with him and utilize him at the frequency that we did last year. I'm looking to see Jordan Mason be used in the passing game, oddly enough. I think that Jordan Mason is an underrated receiver out of the backfield. I think that he is a completely different athlete in open space versus when he has the ball in his hands. And I think that that's going to be a wrinkle in our offense that a lot of linebackers and DBs are not going to be able to keep up with that tempo. He's very fleet of foot when he's running routes, especially when he gets a good head of steam. And that's one thing that you do see a little bit of it when he is running the ball. His acceleration is immaculate. I mean,
yeah.
Jordan Mason gets his foot in the ground, and he's damn near at 3/4 speed in 2 steps. That's special.
It is.
One thing that I will tell you is that it was something that creeped up on him earlier in his career, but we haven't seen it, which is fumbles. And the thing about it is that the only reason why I talk about the turnovers is because he doesn't get a lot of carries. And when you have running backs who have that issue, and they have the tendency to be tough runners. They're gonna run to the echo of the whistle. They're not gonna be tackled by the first man. Ball security is something that I feel as though it's not something from a standpoint of I feel like Jordan Mason has fumbling issues, but I know that Christian McCaffrey even lost confidence during the Super Bowl when he fumbled in Kyle.
Right.
And my issue is that I don't want the maturation process and actually, quite frankly, the weapon, the skill set of Jordan Mason to be lost by maybe a couple of early turnovers in practice. You may hear this stuff, or we may be able to see some things early in preseason. But it's almost one of those things where I feel like it's like kind of starting up a old muscle car, a barn muscle car that's been sitting in the back, and it's like you got to drive it for like 10, 15 miles, and it's going to hiccup on you for a little while. Just, it's been a while, and that's the way I see those things. What do you think about just Jordan Mason in particular, in his emergence and how he seemingly really needs to have a role now? That because Christian is that much more important to us. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, given Christian's contract and given that Jordan Mason, especially from Grant's reporting from OTAs, that Mason is making a lot of strides in passing, that he's making catches in the flat and he's looking natural, he's looking really good, and Elijah Mitchell isn't. But as you point out, fumbles are going to be key because that's what Kyle overreacts to every time, is that if you fumble in the preseason, you're going to be benched. And so for Jordan Mason, it's going to be essential for him to protect the ball, to be able to pass protect in the backfield, and do everything that's asked of him. If he can do that, he can become the number 2 back. If he can't, then Kyle is going to default to, well, Elijah Mitchell never fumbles, so I'm going to play him instead. But we still need to see the proof of it, of Kyle needs to ease off the gas pedal on McCaffrey, even though McCaffrey every down is his best option. Is Kyle willing to sacrifice that? His history says, not on your life. And so the question then is, okay, will you finally change now because you need to? You've got an asset that's one of the best in the league. You've got it for the next 4 years. And the other thing I want to see is from CMC himself is that will he self-regulate now that he's got his final bag? He doesn't need to say, I need to get out there, I need to get more tactical. He doesn't need to pursue the stats as hard as he did. But I think that his competitive nature is such that he's still going to want to be out there. But I hope that he's willing to self-regulate and Kyle is finally willing to change. If that happens, it's much better for the team because then Christian can have more going into the playoffs and he'll be healthy. And you're using Jordan Mason when he's arguably the most under-tapped talent on the roster.
Yeah. I mean, you can say that again. I mean, really under-tapped talent. I mean, especially like as just a tempo changer, almost to the point like, look at the Ravens game that we had. Juwan Jennings not being in that game just for energy and tempo alone was sorely missed. I mean, that's something that now that it seems as though that he will have a role, I hope he does. I don't see how Kyle doesn't see that during games where it's like, all right, we need a tempo changer. Right now, we got them running. They're tired. The best thing for them to do right now is go off tackle at these guys. Put Jordan in the game.
Exactly.
And pageantry be damned. Like, who cares if they know he's coming in to run the ball? I don't care. Like, at some point, we got to move in a way where it's like, all right, well, you know, we are one of the most talented teams in the league, man. Like, I don't care if you know he's in the game to run the ball. Can you stop it?
And that's still true when CMC has the ball, too.
Right.
Yeah, they know when they're running left. And they know that the Niners' tendencies are. And they know that if Mason's in the game, it's probably an off-tackle run. Can you stop it? That's the issue.
Right.
Can Mason protect the ball, and can he succeed? And when he got his chances, he averaged over 6 yards a carry. Give him the ball. Give him a chance. And it's in your team's best interest, your self-interest, to protect McCaffrey and to utilize Jordan Mason far more than he has been so far. You also asked about the other backs. What about Garendo? I think Garendo is just going to be a kickoff returner. He'll be used in sub packages for specific plays, but I think that'll be it. I don't think that he's going to be part of the running back rotation. It's more of, okay, here's our play for Garendo, as opposed to any part of being part of the rotation going forward. I don't think that Garendo's ready for that. I think that basically he's Ray McDonald at running back is what Garendo's going to be this year.
Yeah, he's an auxiliary player. It's a lot of smoke there because of the speed and the size, the measurables. But you know, sometimes when they get players, we always try to shoehorn them in to production on the field. And sometimes we don't realize where sometimes guys are really drafted for just literally a position, literally a role. I think that's the swim lane that he falls in. I don't see it on film, to be honest with you. And I could be wrong. No. You know, I could be wrong. But just his career track through Wisconsin to Louisville, he never was the guy, never started. Never really had any games or consistency of what he shows in spurts. But I will tell you this. The NFL has a way of bringing, like, the best out of you, right, that you didn't know was there. Like, and it's not even the NFL, but it's just atmospheres. Like, when you see other people or peers around you kind of utilizing their skills in a certain manner, it kind of gives you confidence to go ahead and get permission to do your own thing, right? And
yeah, I'm here. I know what I can do. Just give me the ball and let's see what we can do.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I think that given the new kickoff rules, I think that Garendo is going to be one of the better kick returners in the league. Given his speed and just given his natural talent, I think he could do well in that role. But outside of that, I think anything you get from him beyond kick returner is going to be gravy. You're going to get a couple of horizontal throws to him. You're going to get some jet sweeps. That's basically going to be it. He's going to be spice that's added to the mix, but he's the fourth one to eat. He's not going to be getting the ball a lot as a running back. Right.
So we got to go there. I mean, and I feel like he deserves a conversation. In a sense, he's kind of fallen from grace, and not through any fault of his own, but Elijah Mitchell. He has seemed to presumably fallen off the face of the map, where we don't know what we're going to get out of him. We do understand that he's got great reviews from Kyle. He's one of Kyle's guys. Kyle loves him. We know that.
Well, Kyle loves him because he doesn't put the ball on the ground.
Exactly.
And Kyle overvalues that trait extremely. And that's why Elijah gets there. But in the time when he did get a chance to show his stuff, Elijah had some great moments last year. He played pretty well when he was healthy. The question is just, can he maintain his health? And has Jordan Mason surpassed him? I would expect that he has, given that Mason is now showing out and catching the ball. But we'll see what Elijah can do. It's just, we know that Kyle's bias is such that Mitchell is still going to be the number 2 back, whether we like it or not.
So Mitchell. So you believe that Mitchell's the number 2 over Jordan Mason? Period.
Because it's Kyle. I trust Kyle as far as I can throw him. Kyle's going to Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle's going to Kyle.
He doesn't fumble, and therefore out he goes. Go on the field. Go do it. And it's just Jordan Mason's going to have to completely outplay him and do everything right and not fumble in any preseason game to move ahead of him. Maybe Kyle's willing to do that. We'll see. But I'm exceptionally jaded when it comes to Kyle and this stuff. He can be very stubborn in his ways.
Man. Well, we'll see the emergence. I mean, I understand what Kyle wants. And you make great points, Tom, from the standpoint of just he's always going to go with trust. And I'll say this just to give a better picture on Kyle's side. We are a running football team, at least for now. Pending.
Well, I think
right?
Going forward, because you look at the wide receiver salaries. If there's ever an argument that Kyle's going to make, it's now more than ever is the time to go in at running back, not wide receiver.
Okay,
he's proven it by what he just did with McCaffrey and what's going on with Aiyuk.
All right, and I understand that, but from a standpoint, I also feel like, if you're going to have a running football team, turnovers, fumbles are the equivalent of picks. And if you got a guy that you can't trust to hold on to the ball, that's almost as bad as having a quarterback that you're just waiting for him to throw picks, right? So,
right.
I can understand the trust and the equity that Elijah has built, especially off of that remarkable rookie season campaign that he had for us.
Yeah, it's great.
So that right there, it's no secret why he has so much grace on this roster. But from a practical standpoint, Jordan Mason really does need to see the field. And it's not even about Jordan Mason anymore. Like last year was about Jordan Mason, right? It was, we want to see his skill set. It's not all about Christian. We need to help him anyway. And Christian shut all of us up because he didn't get hurt.
Right.
He played the entire time. So it was like, you know what? Christian was like, not only can y'all shut the fuck up, but I'm going to lead the league in rushing, and I'm going to finish the entire year unscathed. Well, not unscathed, but relatively healthy. Healthier than we all expected, quite honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
And his utilization rate was through the roof, right? He got used at a very, very high clip. And I understand that can lend a conversation to Jordan Mason where you're saying, man, get this guy on the field, man. Like, and we could be geeks with it, go X's and O's. Oh, well, if you run him inside, that's the time where Jordan Mason needs to play. And all of that was cool. My main point is this. Because of the money involved, it's imperative that Jordan Mason plays now because we need Christian McCaffrey on the field and we need him fresh. Like looking at Christian McCaffrey play games where we're looking at him and we're saying to ourselves, like, he's barely getting up off the ground. Dude, I was at the Commanders game, bro. Let me tell you, this is a perfect anecdote. I was at the Commanders game and Christian had a gun. He had a Theragun on. And it was like something was going on with like his hip and his hamstring. And I'm going to tell you, Christian stretched and ran. He could have put out a tape for 4 easy installments of $19.99 of sideline aerobics. When you talk about the jumping jacks, the high knees, the lunges, and I'm talking about he was doing all of this the entire game to stay loose because his body was tightening up on him that much. We don't have to go through that. We shouldn't have to go through that. Like he's near the end. He's kind of like in the twilight of his prime. And I, for one, we can crow about the money and whether or not he deserves it or not, or whether or not it was a good or bad move. We talked about that earlier on in different subjects, but all right, man, if you're gonna buy the Lamborghini, at least get the oil change and don't take it off-roading, please. Right? And hey, can we not parallel park on street parking? It's a Lamborghini. We can afford valet. Afford valet. Come on, man. Hey, I know you just want to pop into the McDonald's real quick. No drive-thrus. All right? The windows are going to break, all right, in the drive-thru. Just park the car and walk inside. Just be a little judicial with what we got now, please. And that's what I'm saying. There's a recklessness to And this isn't even by no fault of the Niners. I feel like Christian is a little complicit with this, with how much he wants to play and how much he doesn't want to come off the field. But there needs to be like an explicit conversation now between Kyle and Christian. If that's what you want to, if you really just want to make it two people, cool. Like Kyle can say, hey man, I babysat you. All right. You piss the bed all the time. Like, you want me to embarrass you, bro? Like, come out of the game, bro. Like, stop.
Yeah.
You know, like something.
Well, I'm hopeful that they're going to respect the investment they made. And that has to come from everybody. That has to come from Christian, Kyle, Bobby Turner, the running back room. Everybody needs to come to a collective understanding of, we've made a 4-year investment. We need to make sure that that investment holds up. Because if Christian goes off a cliff, we're going to be spending $25 million on McCaffrey when he can't play. We have to make sure that he stays upright, and all of us have to commit to that. I'm hopeful that now that Christian went all out, got his bag, okay, now hit the brakes. Don't just hit the gas.
Right.
We need to make sure that Lamborghini doesn't get in a wreck. We need to make sure that Lamborghini can be driven every week or as close to it as it can get for 4 years. And Kyle needs to understand that. Kyle tends to coach and think in the moment.
Right.
If I need to win this game, and the best way that I can win this game is Christian McCaffrey utilization till the end of time. No. Somebody has to be there, the better angels on his shoulder saying, you need to sit Christian. And those angels need to say the same thing to Christian. If you need to stay on the bench. Because we need to extend this investment. You are the highest paid running back in the league. We are counting on you to provide that value for us for 4 years. We need to make sure that you continue to be a great asset. The only way that happens is if all of us hit the brakes. And the other point in all of this is, regardless of what they paid to Christian, the team is best served by giving Jordan Mason more of an opportunity. Agreed.
I mean, that was so eloquently put, Tom, honestly. I just think that it helps everybody. I understand that we have like youth, right? We're talking about rookies. What are we going to do with youth? And rightfully so, right? We bled ourselves through the cap with the quarterback deal, with trying to move on with certain players. Some guys didn't pan out for us. Some guys have moved on. We have some guys right now that we're almost kind of looking to kind of show their worth finally with the assets that we spent on them throughout the draft. But there is something to be said about like those guys that have kind of already been here, but they're just not being used, right? And I feel like Jordan Mason falls in that category of just like, he's been here, but we just haven't found like a consistent role, in a certain way. And I know that Danny Gray has not shown consistency. That's why he hasn't found the field. But I mean, you got to get some reps. I'd love to start seeing him just start being able to at least go down on his sword. You got 2 new receivers in here, right? He's a dead man walking. He knows it. Give him a pistol and let him duel. At least let the man fight for his life. Get him on the field.
If he's in a do or die moment, let him do. Let him try. Give him the ball, see what he can do. And the reports are that he's finally catching the ball with his hands away from his body. And that's always been what Kyle wanted to see. So if he's doing that, okay, now let's see you do that in practice. Let's see you do that in an exhibition game. Let's see what you got.
Yeah.
This is his opportunity. There's a lot of guys who are, borderline busts, where it's Ambry, Danny Gray, and a number of other people who are kind of just on the border of not making the team. Cam Latu, Sam Womack. Well, let's see what happens, but you guys have to step up your game or you're gone. Literally. And so hopefully some of them will respond. We'll see what Danny does, but I hope that they at least give him the opportunity in the exhibition games to see what he can do. And let's give it a shot and see.
Yeah. And I'm ready to see exactly what they're made of. Also, it's something to be said about the fight that you're going to see from these guys. Sometimes they've been walking around with, the big guys have earned it. Trent's earned it. Fred Warner's earned it. George Kittle's earned it. It just bothers me when I see, like, Danny Gray walking around in jewelry. And I'm like, what have you done? What have you done, bro? What have you done, man? And
he's run 4.26.
yeah, exactly. You haven't done anything. So for me, these moments, for these moments of the season, this is where I get to see their mettle, right? I want to see Danny Gray fight for his career, right?
Yeah.
I want to see Drake Jackson fight. I want to hear about Drake Jackson's battles in camp. I want to hear about Spencer Burford throwing a blow in camp. Like, I want these guys to show that quite frankly, I want to see how bad they want to be on this team.
Yeah.
Like, how bad do you want to be here? You know?
Well, the bottom line is compete. And it's compete or you're cut. And it's up to them to decide, how much do I want this? And we'll see that desire or lack thereof in practice reports. And thanks, Mike. And in the exhibition games and see. But they'll get an opportunity, I would hope, and it's just upon them to say that, okay, I can step up in the moment, I can deliver. And if they can't, then the Niners will be justified in saying that, we gave you your opportunity. This is not a position that's locked down by any means, and you couldn't get it done. Sorry, but we're going to have to cut you.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of guys are facing that. This is an important camp for all of those guys.
Yeah.
And for Drake Jackson especially, they need him to deliver. They need that depth on the defensive line. It makes them so much better to have depth. And if they don't have it, they're going to suffer for it. They need Drake to step up. He has to define, okay, what should my weight be? What should my role be? What should my skill set be? I'm going to be that player. The problem for him is SC kept changing it. They made him a decathlete, and he never specialized in anything. And the NFL is specialization, especially in the D-line. You've got to be able to do something where it's, we can count on you to do X. And if Drake can't do X, he's gone.
Yeah. And I'm ready to see it. It's time. And I think that guys getting lopped off who have been here quite some time kind of wakes some other guys up too, right? Like, oh, okay. Like, this guy was a second-round pick. Yeah, he was a second-round pick. He's cut. He's gone. I think that, that type of competitive spirit kind of needs to be revitalized around here, because you're really not going to, this is the thing. Like, the culture of our team was built by the core, but the competitiveness that they have right now is almost only something that they can only agree, they can only experience with one another. It's hard to explain. It's like,
well, it has to be organic. It has to come from them. It's not something that can come from, well, this is how we do things around here. It's prove it, get it done, show what you got, and contribute to what this team does. If you don't, you're gone. And I think that last year we didn't really have that because we didn't have much of a draft. And so it was a team of extremes. There were veteran guys who were great and backups who weren't, that weren't ready. And there was too big a gap between the two. Now we've had another draft, hopefully a better one, and that's going to make this a more competitive atmosphere. Plus, all the guys that got redshirted 2 years ago, or no, last year, are now going to have to deliver. Darrell Luter and the rest of them, what do you got? And it's time for them to show out. It's okay. You got your year off to learn, grow, develop. Now compete. And I think that this team is now in a better position in its depth to be able to compete, challenge, and the cream will rise to the top.
Agreed. So, speaking of the Christian McCaffrey deal, this is something that you raised to me that I really want you to take the floor and take this one over, Tom, because quite honestly, I really love where you're going with this, but I don't want to step on it or butcher it. So
You won't.
But with the Christian McCaffrey extension, does McCaffrey's extension imply that Trent, George Kittle, and Fred Warner will be treated similarly? Is this a dangerous precedent to set? And I think that, you know what? Instead of me trying to parse your words for you, I'm gonna let you go. So go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Coach. This is my worry that I was mentioning earlier, that it's the carryover effect of saying, okay, Christian's part of the true core of the team. He got rewarded. He played well. He got an extension. And that seems to be a default answer, is that the Niners have said, okay, if you no longer contribute, then you're Eric Armstead, you're jettisoned, you're let go. If you do contribute and you are somebody that we can count on, we're going to take care of you, even when we shouldn't, even when the NFL history says you're going to be too old. And so I think that the problem with all this becomes that Shanahan has basically rung the triangle for come and get it for dinner. That now every veteran is going to say, okay, Christian was taken care of, I've contributed, I've done what I can, so now I should be rewarded. Trent Williams is going to say, okay, doesn't matter how old I am, I'm Trent Williams. I want to keep playing, I want to keep making this money. And so he says, okay, take care of me. Kittle, take care of me. Fred, take care of me. And Charvarius Ward this week saying, take care of me. And pretty soon it's just, you're going to have a line of veterans who are too old that the Niners are going to take care of because they took care of McCaffrey. And part of this goes back to Kyle being self-serving as GM, is that it serves his purpose as offensive coordinator and head coach to bring these guys back and say, let's just keep running as long as we can. The problem is that those guys are then going to get hurt, and Father Time's going to catch up, and now you're paying huge salaries to these guys when they're not in their prime any longer, and they're going to be far more dangerous, far more vulnerable, far more susceptible to getting hurt. And that's especially true of Christian. And so what's going to happen? Everybody's going to say, I've done my part. I've done exactly what Christian did. I've just made that a tackle, tight end, linebacker, DB. Everybody's going to want to and expect that. And if you don't give it to them, then that's going to cause a problem in the locker room. And if you do give it to them, it's going to cause a problem on the cap. Is that you're going to have guys who are just too old. It's like I was saying before, is that you got 30-year-old McCaffrey behind 38-year-old Trent Williams. How is that going to work? And Trent was already starting to show his age in the Super Bowl. He didn't play well that game. And so what's this going to be? It's still Trent Williams, Hall of Famer. He's still an incredible ball player. But when he gets into further age, who's he going to be? Is there any question now after what they just did with McCaffrey that they're going to take care of Trent when he says, I want to keep playing? I think Kyle's going to take care of him. And he's going to do that with Kittle. He's going to do that with Fred.
I tend to agree with this. I don't see I would love to just send the link to Kyle Chiptoe and ask him directly, why does he think this is a bit extreme? Kyle loves these guys. And this topic's really going to lead into our next topic, but there's more than a coach-player relationship here with these guys. And, we can talk about other mechanisms that could be put in place that would serve Kyle better as a leader and a coach. But if we're talking about the current situation, Trent Williams' Twitter bio is, I'm here as long as the Niners will have me. That's basically his calling sign. I'm here as long as the Niners will have me.
And Christian McCaffrey, point blank.
Yeah, point blank. Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you this right now. With all of the veteran days and all of the mechanisms that we have set in place for Trent to be a veteran and feel comfortable, and a lot of that stuff he's earned, I get it, but it does come to a point where we're asking ourselves, all of that stuff is okay if I see Trent being Trent on Sundays. And
available. And not missing more than 3 games a year.
Thank you. Not missing more than 3 games a year. We're only playing 14 games a year, essentially. And look, man, everybody knows I don't mince my words here, but I'm trying to be judicial now. Like, I got a lot of shit going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got the production, so I can't just be wigging out, right? Trying to get some sponsors, bro. But Trent, he did not have a good game in the Super Bowl. He struggled. There were some instances that were just not. I could see plays where you say to yourself, "Man, that doesn't look like Trent right there." right? But then you see players where you're like, that don't look good at all. That I don't care who is wearing that play. I don't care whose number is on that jersey. And look, the age is showing. I don't think it's a talent issue. I just think that it's an inevitability. Like, he's just getting older, and there's a lot of things that he can't do. One of the things that I'm seeing out of Trent is his flexibility. His flexibility is waning. He's very stiff now. He's a waist bender now. He does not bend at the legs or at the knees anymore. And that's just something that you see from older linemen. This isn't a knock on Trent, but these are just things that you tend to see. So for me, this is a real topic. This is a real subject, about what is George going to be able to do? Like, all right, let's look at it this way. If let's do it your way, Kawa, right? Let's do it his way. Let's say it's not true. Well, the Niners sure as hell have been trying a hell of enough time trying to find the next George Kittle since he's been here. They have been failing woefully at trying to find somebody in his stead. So who's to say when George comes up again that he's not looking at the Niners like, look, I'm going to squeeze you guys, bro. We're going to have good seasons regardless. Then my name and my cachet is always going to put me in a position where I'm going to be desirable, if not by the best teams, at worst by the teams who really need me to come in and be a culture standard bearer for them, right? I can always leave and go get what I think I deserve in the open market. Eric Armstead just proved that to be true, right? So what are you guys going to do? Are you going to roll out Logan Thomas, Braden Willis, and Cam Latu, right? Possibly Mason Pine, or are you guys going to pay me what I'm worth? Because for what it's worth, and this is what happens, man, when you shop for a scheme instead of trying to get the best players available. This is what happens because people start feeling their resume. And it's like, you know what I can do. And it's just like, yeah, inside of this building, though, right? But the problem is that they high off their own supply. So they don't know nothing else but this scheme, right? Even Trent doesn't know anything but this scheme. You know what I'm saying? So it is a real issue. And I'm going to be interested to see how Kyle shapes out. What do you think? Just closing it out. Do you think that all of these guys see another deal? Or if we do move on, right, who do we move on from?
Well, I think that Trent is likely to be kept just because he's Lock Hall of Famer, he's Trent Williams. Unless you see the Super Bowl as the start of a pretty dramatic decline next year where he just doesn't play, okay, then they'll pull the plug. But if Trent has a regular season like he did last year, they'll keep him. And it's easier for them to keep Trent than to draft a tackle, and Kyle has already proven, and in the draft just passed. Best tackle class in over 15 years, no tackle taken. Why? Because in part, he knows he's got Trent Williams. And so I think that if we had to lay a bet right now in Vegas, is Trent Williams still going to be a Niner after his current contract? I would say yes, because it's Kyle Shanahan. It's what he's accustomed to, it's what he believes in, it's what he trusts. Tight end, we'll see. It's going to depend. I think they're going to draft a tight end in the first round next year, or the second. That could the tight end from Michigan, tight end from Iowa, tight end from Notre Dame. All those guys can play. One of those can go in the first two rounds. We'll see what they do, but I think that that's possible. But then we'll have to see if they can develop to the point where they could then take over for George. If they don't have a viable number two, then Kittle can step in and say, I'm still here. I'm still playing well. I'm still contributing. I've done everything that Christian has done to take care of me. And chances are that Kyle will do so. So I think that Kittle is another, but it's going to depend on what happens in next year's drafted tight end and do they develop. Fred, I think that Fred has proven that he's the defensive leader on this team. He sets the tempo. He sets expectations. He's a guy that they always rely on. I think that Fred will be taken care of. I don't see them moving on from Fred. And so all those guys, I think, will stay. Now, Carlos said that they haven't extended Ward. Well, they haven't extended Ward yet, but they might. He's just said here we are, and I'd be interested in sticking around. Let's talk. So, Ward is interested. We'll see if the Niners are. So I think this is a concern, is that the problem is that you've got a GM that didn't learn from Walsh. And here I am going back to Walsh as always. He always let go of people a year early, not a year late. And here's the Niners doing the opposite. And I think there's logic behind what Walsh did, that you end up, especially in the cap era now, you end up paying a heavy price going forward if you're going to take care of these guys and give them really big money when they are no longer in their prime. That's a worry.
Yeah. Well, we're really strapped to the draft and the development of the coaching staff. See how we can develop these guys. We have a draft class coming up, and I'm excited to see how all these guys do. One thing that I will say is that it is an I don't want to say older, but a more mature rookie draft class. Majority of all of them are either fifth-year seniors, transfer COVID seniors, or just straight-up seniors. I believe the only underclassman that we did sign was Malik Mustafa or Ronaldo Green. Who was the underclassman? Everybody else was pretty much a senior on our draft. So what I will say is that because you have, what would say more experienced young guys coming in, I think that should raise the floor, if not anything first. We'll worry about the ceiling later. But I feel like the difference between good teams and bad teams is that the players that good teams cut end up getting picked up on other teams. That's the difference. That's the difference. And that's really what the brass key is of this phase of the offseason, is keeping competition at an all-time high. We could talk about game planning later. We could talk about what these guys need to do inside of the scheme, all of that, who's going to get open, all of that stuff. That's cool, especially when training camp starts later. But as far as competitiveness, if you have a team that is kind of walking through the offseason, just kind of walking through the motions, they're going to get their ass whipped when the season comes. I'm telling you right now. Competitiveness does not start on week one. It starts now, right? It's got to be now. So that's why it's important to talk about all of the smaller guys that need to pick up their game, because with the topic that we're marrying with now is with these older guys, if they're going to get more money and bigger contracts when they're older, then we got to count on these younger guys to kind of keep that rolling boil. Like, you're not going to be able to get Trent Williams out there going one-on-ones with Nick Bosa all day, kind of being the tip of that spear. And that's really what I was trying to touch on earlier, and I feel like I'm kind of coming up on it better now. Whereas there was a competitiveness during certain levels of their career that everybody could take part in, right? Where when Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle were their second or third years in the league, their fourth years in the league, right? The competitiveness of them trying to not only be leaders, but build a culture and win a Super Bowl and be the best for themselves selfishly, for their own careers. That's stuff that permeates and builds a culture. That's the stuff that builds a culture where you ask, well, what's your why? And it's like, I got more than one why. I got like 5 whys. How many whys you got? And that's where a culture comes from, where the guys, now that they've gotten their money. They've been to the Super Bowls. They've been to the playoffs. They've gotten the individual awards, the national awards. They've been to the Pro Bowls. They've been all pros, right? The only literal thing that majority of the leadership of this team does not have is a Super Bowl win. Like, that's really what they want. And honestly, when your mindset is trying to win a Super Bowl or trying to win a championship, sometimes it's hard, man, to climb all the way back down to the mountain and then start walking and trudging through the foothills. All of the things that you have to do, you tend to skip steps, cut corners, say, all right, we understand what we got to do when we have to turn it on. That type of language starts coming on. We know who we are as a team. That language starts creeping in. And what happens is that these guys they don't know what they don't know. Like Hannibal. Hannibal's 8 years old, right? That boy don't know that he's 64 in dog years. He don't know how old he is. So when I take him out in 85, 90 degree weather, he don't understand. I got to watch him. Because his drive is always going to be, I'm 2 years old and I can run 5 miles. Right, I can go take down a 200-pound boar by myself. He don't realize how old he is. So you got to be able to watch him and keep him from himself, right, and help him. Yeah. And these guys, they talk. If you get Trent Williams at a press conference, if you get him in front of a mic, he's going to tell you that there's nobody in the NFL that can block him. That he can't block. That's not true anymore.
No.
And that doesn't make him a liar, right? Because that's the mindset that he needs to have, that he's always had. But that's not true anymore, right?
Well, that's a tough reality to face. You're always going to think back to, back in the day, I was dominating everybody. And it wasn't that long ago that Trent Williams wasn't ranked as the number one lineman by PFF and all that stuff. And rightly, deservingly said is just a lock, unanimous Hall of Famer, no question. But he also has to be wary of, this Super Bowl wasn't my best, and this was my chance for a ring. What do I do? And so they're going to have to test themselves. Part of this is really difficult in emotional. How do you recover in terms of just the mental energy?
It's a lot.
Is that mentally it wipes you out to go all that way, put all that effort in, and lose.
Yeah.
And lose in the way they did, where it was death by 1,000 cuts. It would be one thing if you just beat by Mahomes. It's another when you lose in overtime and you made a lot of self-induced mistakes.
Yeah.
It's even harder to take. So the emotional recovery is one thing, and that takes a lot of energy. And then physically, you got to be ready to play. And so I think that they're going to have to rely, to a degree, on some of the younger guys to provide some of that physical energy, to provide some of that fire to stoke the engine. Because they're going to need that pickup. Once the game gets rolling, they'll be fine, but there are certain players that, we don't know if Afunga says he wants to play week 1. We'll see. It might be that you need Malik Mustafa to fill in, and he'll need to be ready to go. He'll be critical. If they're going to beat the Jets, Mustafa's going to have to play well if he's forced into that role. So these guys are going to have to be ready. And I think that you're exactly right on saying the competitive fire right now sets the tone for the entire year and gets them ready to the point where this team can fill in, step up, and have players that can come in that aren't necessarily a proven veteran, but can still come in there and get the job done. And they're going to need that. And they might need that early, especially if you don't have Funga and you don't have Dre Greenlaw. Who do you have? Who steps up?
Right. There's going to be some guys that are going to have to be able to see it, hear it, get told stories about it, and just start applying it. Build the plane in the air. You're going to have to do it scared. And that's something that I feel like there's an element of that's going to be needed this year. I just hope that they notice it. Right. I hope they notice it. I hope they embrace it. I hope that these guys start understanding that they're going to need some young blood. That's one of the reasons why I want BA and the Niners to figure out this ridiculous situation. I want them to find middle ground. The reason why I want them to is because BA's competitive fire is different. This may seem so different, so wild that I'm saying this, but just walk with me. BA's competitive fire is so different and unique to what even George brings to the team, what Debo brings to the team, what Fred brings to the team, because in a sense, all of those guys were built for a core. They were already brought in for a core purpose. BA is almost, in a sense, like the youngest guy in the core. He's especially on offense. He's the guy where if you're looking at Debo is dead smack in the middle of his prime, right? He's dead smack in the middle of it, right? Some could even say he's maybe on the back 9 of his prime, okay? Depending on what he's going to do this year. And I will say, just by looking at Debo multiple times, he looks really good. Debo looks in shape. Cool. I will say, but outside of that, we need to be able to take advantage of Brock and BA's prime, when they finally start getting to where they need to be. Like, I would say 2 years ago, BA finally got it when he broke 1,000. This year, he hit 1,400. We're in the throes of probably the best that he's ever going to do in his career for like the next 3 to 4 years. This is it.
Yeah.
And I feel as though that it's almost like having a lottery ticket and you just get told that you got to show up to the bank at a certain time to cash it in, and we're not waiting at the right time. Now, that could be, I could be speaking out of school because that could be on BA. Obviously, I wanted to take time to just let you guys know that the poll over my shoulder, will the 49ers re-sign Brandon Aiyuk before training camp, yes or no? The poll link is in the bio, so you guys can go ahead and click it in the bio. Click on the link and go in there and vote on it. Me and Tom are going to talk about it near the end of the show. But that's something that you do have to understand, is that another dangerous precedent is that re-signing these guys, you know, it's almost like we're going to have to watch these guys fall out of their prime. Right? We're going to have to be the Warriors. We're gonna have to watch, literally sit back and watch like George like barely getting the 3-point stands. Like, bro, I don't want to. At what point? Let me ask you this: at what point do we pull the trigger? When do we make business decisions? Or do you really believe that the over-under on Kyle walking into second-year contracts the way he did Christian McCaffrey's deal with the older core of players is just the inevitable?
I think it's more inevitable than not, but they still have to prove themselves. And Trent did that last year, as Goss said in the chat, that Trent didn't allow a sack in the regular season. So, yeah, you know, Trent delivered when the regular season called for it, but in the most important game of the season, the game that defines everything that this core is about, they didn't get it done. And that's what's most important, is that when it counts most, do you have the competitive greatness to take this team to the next level and win a championship? And Trent didn't deliver on that. Can he deliver next year? We'll find out. Will he stay on the team? He wants to be a part of this team long term because he wants to get paid, and he's earned that. He's one of the best tackles in the league. If he continues that performance, great. But they have to be very careful in monitoring just how much these guys have left, because you have to weigh those deals carefully. Now, you can worry with part of that where you can just say, okay, we're going to have a buyout clause like they did with McCaffrey, or we're going to have something where there's void years, or there's a year where we can get out of it. And they're going to have to structure these deals very carefully so they've got exit points. Mm-hmm. But as long as they pay attention to, you know, are you delivering? Are you doing everything we need to? Are you earning the money that we would give you in another deal? If you are, we'll give it to you. If you're not, we won't. But I think that all things being equal, those guys will be competitive. They will do most, if not all, of their job, and that those guys will be extended. Trent, Kittle, Fred, all of them.
Damn it. I don't know, man. I think they'll make moves. You know what? We're gonna come back to this when BA gets signed, and we're gonna come back to this, and I'm gonna ask because I feel like the money, if BA gets signed, and the money for which he gets signed for, how much the deal is, and especially how it's rolled out, the guarantees, I feel like the BA deal could be a misnomer for what we could see to come for the other guys, where it's like, hey, don't look now, but this is the contract that we actually plan on paying. Right? This is the deal that we're actually going to plan. Like, they could be structuring out BA's deal in a way where it doesn't hurt the team early now, but when they really have to pay the piper with the bigger years, they'll be able to offload it by paying him, getting Brock signed, and by that time, Debo will be moved on from, and possibly Trent. Right?
Right.
So if you look at it, all right, staying with the veterans doesn't necessarily help our cause in signing BA, but the reason why I believe that this question is so important is it really does speak to the future on, if you keep these guys, how do you sign Brock? How do you sign Brock if you re-sign Trent, right? If you, like, is Trent going to be on these, like, Lawyer Malloy deals, like these 1-year deals? Remember the Lawyer Malloy deals?
Oh, man. Cha-ching, annually. Okay, here we go. Ring that cash register, Lawyer.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
they might do that. Yeah, we'll see. But if the cap continues to go up the way it is, if the TV money continues to restructure and feed the NFL coffers, then they can deal with it, but it's still hard.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the key with Brock is I think that you need to get Brock into a 5-year deal so that you can push the money further out and backload it. You give him a lot of guaranteed money, and that buys you time. And
Mm-hmm.
clearly they're trying to do that. They're trying to structure out in this year, where are we spending our money? What are we paying Brock at that point in time? How much can we give everybody else? What do we expect the cap to be? They have to make the calculations on all of that stuff collectively. They can do it, but the cap needs to continue to go up 20 a year. Otherwise,
Mm.
eventually it's going to come back and bite them. But by that time, it might be such that players have fallen off and that they need to hit rock bottom and start over again anyway. And so that might be a good thing that they crash and burn, because then it would allow them an opportunity to rebuild, reload, and get going again. But until that point, they're going to try to extend this window as long as they can. I think this window is tied to Trent, is that as long as Trent is Trent, they've got a chance to win a Super Bowl. But once Trent falls off, they don't. And so we'll see.
Yeah, I think their biggest deal right now, I think that Trent Williams basically signifies what they're going to do with the core. As soon as they figure out what they can get done at left tackle, I really do believe that the Trent Williams deal or the no deal will signify where they want to go, how they want to move forward. Because in their eyes, from how they move with the offensive line and how the fact that they just don't prioritize it the way we believe they should, right? Because some of them may argue with us and say, we do prioritize. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? But because some of the time it comes off as though that they don't prioritize the offensive line at times, in their mind, their number one reason why they prioritize is because they're looking at Trent Williams. They're like, how the hell do you tell us we don't prioritize offensive line with what we pay this guy? Right.
Well, because we're looking at the other 4 linemen and saying that they're costing under $11 million collectively.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
I know. But that's the response. It's just that, okay, Trent Williams is one player. What about the other 4? That question has to be asked of Shanahan. And it would be interesting that if Trent gets to the point where his body just can't go and he says that, okay, I have to hang it up. His body forces him to retire. Now the Niners have an opportunity to pivot. Now they can say, I don't need to spend all of my offensive line money on one guy. Now I can spread it out. Would they do that? We'll see. But I think that's what it would take, is that it would take retirement being forced upon Trent. Because if he's got a choice and he's still productive, I think Kyle is going to keep paying Trent and keep having him out there.
Yeah. That sucks. I do want to answer this question from Dank Dank. So what do you think about most of the vets sitting out? I think that it's not about them sitting out now. I think it's when they sit out. I'm not really worried about minicamp or OTAs. My biggest deal is that I believe that no matter what, if there's no such thing as football shape. You're either in game shape or you're not. And the only way that you get in football shape is if you play football. And I believe that you need a full camp. It's needed. You need a full camp.
And we've seen that. Bosa is in great shape, and then he worked out on his own. How did he start the year? He didn't start the year well. He had a poor season for his standards overall. Right. And so there's a need, I would think, that and Brandon Aiyuk the same way. You know that he's going to come in shape, but he's not going to be necessarily in football shape.
Right.
And so, what do you do? But we've got a couple more things, then we can get to Brandon. So the other question that all this poses is just, is Kyle too close to the players? Is that part of why the Christian McCaffrey deal gets made, is because he's close? And this veteran core that he's so close to as well, is that driving some of the decisions? Is that why the Niners might say that, I don't just trust these guys, I know these guys.
Well,
and so I know Trent, I know Kittle, I know Fred, I know what they can do, I know what they're capable of, I know how hard they work. And so Kyle's relationship with them feeds part of the decision making.
100%, and I'm glad that you segued us into this, Tom, because this is the next question. This is the next topic, rather. This comes right off of us talking about whether or not Kyle will pull the trigger on trying to preserve the core to give them money. Let's say what it is. Let's say what it is. They're not gonna give us deals. They're not gonna give us hometown discounts. They're gonna get paid market rate or top of the food chain of what they think they deserve to get paid. And the facts are is that I have a hard time seeing anybody on this team being worthy of another contract as far as the core is concerned. Like maybe Fred Warner, maybe Fred, right? Maybe Nick, maybe.
Provided it's a shorter term deal. Yeah.
Right, but I don't see us kicking the tires on Deebo Samuels again and giving him like yet another 3 year. No, that's not happening. I don't see that for George Kittle. I don't see that for Trent Williams. So that's really why this question was kind of posed, is because you have to ask yourself, what's going to give, right? Is it the immovable force or is it the unstoppable force or the immovable object, right? Are they going to acquiesce and even if they gave team deals, would you still want them?
It'll depend on their performance.
Right.
If you get the performance you did last year, yes, and they will.
Okay.
If we see what we saw last year from Trent, Kittle, and Fred, they'd be extended. And that's why they have to monitor this so carefully, is you have to know the trigger points to say that this is a point of no return where they're now going to be in decline, or this is an injury that's too difficult to recover from, or whatever. But they're going to need to be razor sharp on these decision points of when do we know these guys are no longer going to be able to produce at this level, and what are we going to do about it? How are we going to address it? And they've got an option. They can extend them. They can use the draft. They can use the deadline. There's a number of tools they can use, but they're going to have to use all of them. And it's going to test Kyle in terms of you can't just be their friend. You have to be the actual general manager, the actual head coach, the actual offensive coordinator. And is Kyle ready to do that? To this point, he hasn't, but I did like what I saw from what they did with Armstead and Juszczyk, that here's two guys that didn't deliver, that had some problems with injuries, that had some problems with availability or performance, and availability in the case of Armstead, and let him go or restructured with Juice. It shows that they are capable of making the hard decision. I just wonder are they capable of making that decision for the aging core, the guys that are the true core that have been the heart and soul of the team.
Yeah, I agree. And really, this kind of takes us into kind of, Kyle is being assessed too. The last call-in show, or the last show that I did on the platform was a call-in show. And I raised a question, Tom. Is Kyle Shanahan getting better or worse? And we all know the adage of if you're not getting better or worse, you're staying the same, which means you're getting worse. Right? So there's no he's the same. It's either he's better or he's worse. You know what? That should have been a poll. Instead of this boring ass Brandon Aiyuk topic, that should have been that. I'm putting that as a poll. Next time, that's going to be a poll. But that is the question. Like, is Kyle Shanahan getting better or worse? Everybody can be assessed, and I got news, man. I think he may be getting better. I think
in aspects.
Yes.
Not everything. There's 3 different roles.
Okay, and that's true because Kyle has become like Gambit with it. He knows how to like switch hats. He's a shapeshifter. He is like.
Well, it's smart. It's what you should do.
Yes. One thing I will say is that Kyle has done an amazing job. I don't think anybody in media has picked up on this yet, but Kyle wears 3 hats. He is the offensive coordinator, he's the head coach, and he's the GM, right? And for me, I feel like Kyle has 3 alter egos that he uses at his disposal, whichever serves him best on whatever question he's asked in the media. So if Kyle is being assessed as a coach after a game, he'll answer as a coordinator. and say, oh, well, he should have done this. His 3-step drop wasn't there. That wasn't the right play. Actually, I have no problem with our offense going as hard as they can. And it's like, yeah, but you're not really taking the responsibility. We're not really talking to you as an OC right now. We're trying to talk to you as a coach. And then when you try to get in the weeds with him and say like, hey, Kyle, so why aren't you running Jordan Mason? Like, that's like an offensive coordinator question. Like, why isn't Jordan Mason playing on short yardage downs? Like, I'm starting to see that you guys are going spread offense. Then they'll turn into a coach. There's nothing wrong with Jordan Mason. He's good. He'll get his reps when he did. I mean, do you even know if he played? Well, he was on special teams today. Did you see that? Well, he was on. It's like he'll go like top down 10,000-foot view on you. He'll big time you if you try to give him what he wants from an offensive coordinator perspective. And even when you ask him about players, one thing that he does is that when you ask him about players, like he's judge, jury, and executioner, but he gets away with this all the time. And nobody has ever. Yeah, nobody's ever said this to him, bro. But
you are the only one who's made that criticism, and it's dead on.
Bro.
And it's smart for him to do so because it's just, okay, I can't answer this question in the way that it was asked and intended in terms of...
So he gaslights.
This question was intended for me to answer it as offensive coordinator. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to head coach.
Right.
He does that all the time.
Right, because
and it's
that's...
infuriating.
Because I have the power dynamic in... Yes, because it's like I have the power dynamic in this discussion right now. So if I meet you... Right. If I meet you where you're meeting me, that means that I have to see you as an equal right now. You're a reporter asking me an offensive coordinator question. I can be an honest broker right now and answer you as an offensive coordinator and tell you, well, yeah, okay, well, yeah, we kind of messed up on this play. But no, he'll take the opportunity to say, a head coach could really squash this right now. And God damn it, I'm a head coach. So you know what? Why the hell are you asking me this shit? Like, he does that all the time. Even when he's asked about players like from like an infrastructure standpoint of like, what do you guys think? What do you think about the deal? Like, how's things going on this side? Like, do we want to get things done? He'll be like, oh, that's just the money stuff. I can't wait till he gets on the field though. It's almost like he hates money, like he plays for Pokemon cards or something. Yeah, like, I don't even play for money. Like, it doesn't even, and it's just like the bait and switch, smoke and mirrors by him it's just rich, man. It's like, just be flat-footed. We know who you are. And then on top of all of it, he'll have the nerve to say, I'm the final say-so. Bullshit. You don't never answer when you asked. When you ask a flat-out question, you never stand flat-footed. So I will say that one of the elixirs to be able to help him is to finally create distance. You have to create this. What we just talked about is distance, arm's length, right? Leverage. I'm always going to be a beat ahead of you. I'm never going to meet you where you meet me. I'm going to be a step ahead. I'm going to be 10 minutes early. You are never going to catch my tempo. You're never going to catch my rhythm. Kyle needs to start taking the same attitude that he has with the media and with the fans, and he needs to take that same exact attitude and turn it on his players. He needs to do that. Yes.
Is that the energy level, the energy investment that he puts in all of that needs to be applied across the board.
Right.
In his dealings with the players and in all three of his roles. If he does that, the team is better served and they've got a much better chance of winning a ring.
Yes. I think that him being able to sit back and I don't think they went to Cabo this year. I think that's refreshing that they didn't do that this year. Debo looks a lot more focused. He looks in shape. He looks calm. I even enjoyed the conversation. I had a conversation with Jesse, and me and Jesse were talking about George Kittle's interview where I guess he had like alluded to the fact that he had reached out to Joe Staley and that he started to finally start understanding how it felt after losing multiple Super Bowls and, kind of just, it was sobering. And for me, what I saw there is I I see a maturity of these guys where like they are tired of. I feel like they're finally tired of impressing us. They're tired of wearing it. They're tired of walking around with it on their chest as if we're the baddest things walking. I feel like they've lost enough in the big games for them to understand who they are, but not necessarily be moved by outside like energy, outside sources. I really do. From Debo talking multiple times throughout the season, from Kyle talking, especially his last press conference that he had, when he was talking about the team at large and talking about Brock. And I just feel like they're a lot more rooted this year. I got to be honest with you. I mean, even now, this would be a year where you could pounce and say, oh, well, they lost. God damn it, they didn't know the overtime rules. You know, we got this planned obsolescence rookie class that's waiting to get busted at the seams in 1 year on one contract. But from the guys that have been here, I may be misreading this, right? Because if you're looking at this from one prism, you could say they look like they just have no life. It's like you don't look like you're really getting ready for a season. I don't feel the energy. I don't see the optimism. But what I feel from them now is I just kind of feel like I get like this calmness from them, like this confidence where it's kind of like, you know what, we don't need to. We'll see you guys on week 1. We don't need to sit here and there's no slogan this year. We're good enough to make it. Like at this stage of the game, guys, we're looking inward, and I feel that way this year. And I think if Kyle, I feel like if Kyle really just, I feel as though that if none of them just come back to it, right? Like it's almost like graduating from high school or graduating from college or whatever, and your whole friend group, you know, they kind of fall where they're supposed to fall. Right? It's like, don't try to come back to the same watering hole that we went to after school. Like, don't try to meet me over here at the pub. Like, no, bro. Like, hey, our lives will find each other down the road. Right? If you're going to college, I'll find you in college. If you're going in the military, I'll find you in the military. I think that this year, the way they kind of broke off this season, I get the feeling that they've all kind of left that like sophomoric all for one for all bullshit. I feel like it broke and they can't come back to it anymore. And they're all trying to figure out how to be professionals now. And I don't think they know it yet, but this is exactly what they should have been all along. They should have been like this all along.
That's so beautifully said, Coach. Beautifully said. And exactly right.
Yeah.
And part of how they recover from all this emotionally is to drop that baggage. The baggage of outside expectations, the baggage of we're the best team, and you know, all this stuff that's expected of them from the outside. Let all of that go. Take all of that weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
Focus within and say that we know we're good. We know who we are. We know we can be here. And you don't need to adopt this false bravado of we would have won if. You know, don't make any excuses. Just be yourselves and know that we belong in the discussion. We'll be there when it matters. We know how to manage ourselves. We know how to collectively go through a season and have ourselves prepared. Now, come on. We've been to 4 NFC Championship games in 5 years. We know what we're doing.
You know what?
And so they don't need to take all that on. Lose that weight. Be zen. Be self-focused. And just take care of yourself. And by taking care of yourself, you take care of the team.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, I'll know how they feel when I hear somebody say like, you know, we should have. You know, we've missed out on a lot of opportunities. I feel like even listening to George, that was a little bit in his speech. I've never heard him talk like that before. He's always so performative. But even George, he just had a sober, real moment and said, hey, man, we've been at this, man. Like, we've lost it a couple of times. I know how it feels. You know, it's like, you know, Tom, it's like that young guy who comes in and he's like, I never lost a fight. And we're like, well, you ain't been living long enough.
Yeah, soon enough.
It's
Soon
only
enough,
two
kid.
things. You don't fight enough, and you ain't been here long enough. That's it. You ain't been here that long,
right.
and you don't fight enough. Because everybody loses. Everybody loses. So I feel like these guys have been tapped on the chin a couple of times. They understand what it's like to devastatingly lose. They understand what it's like to lose and have no excuses. I think this one was kind of a no excuses loss. This one had to make them really look at this. Exactly. And in a lot of different instances, I'm really glad that Jimmy's not here, because there was a lot of times where we held ourselves from getting to this moment because Jimmy took a lot of the brunt. The bright side of this is that I do see what I presume to decipher as like they're content, they're calm, right? I feel like they're resolute. I don't see any nervousness. I feel like they know what they can do. And the biggest thing for them right now is preserving their energy so they can turn that switch on. But our biggest caveat right now is making sure that the young guys carry them to the moment now, because that's the way it happens now. And it's no more they trudge through week after week after week after week after week, just beating everybody down, and then we get to the playoffs and get a break through the playoffs with two inexperienced. No. There's gonna be swaths, not a period. There's gonna be major swaths of the season, 2 to 3 weeks here, 2 to 3 weeks there, where our young guys are going to have to grow up in front of us. That's what I believe is going to happen this season. What do you think, Tom?
I think that's one of the key elements for this season, and one of the key themes is balance. Mm-hmm. That you need balance between young and old, between guys that have been there and guys who haven't. But the common thread for all of them is to know that we need to execute, we know what we need to do, and if we can take care of our assignments and not take too much onto ourselves, play within ourselves, we'll be okay. And I love the humility that I saw from George Kittle that he hadn't seen before. As you say, that he's always seems to be playing a character. Now he seemed to be himself in the moment.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, this has happened, I've learned from it, and now I know what I need to do going forward. And all of the members of the team that have been through that, have been through 2 Super Bowls, have learned from that experience enough to know who I am, and through that self-actualization, they can get energy as the year goes on. They don't need to take on all the emotional baggage. They don't need to take on all the expectations. Let all of that go. And I'm seeing a lot more zen from a team that's lacked it, and now they're showing it. And that's a sign of maturity, professionalism, and a team that's been humbled. And in the past, they've made the excuses. They've said, well, Bosa got held, or Jimmy didn't make the pass.
It's unbecoming.
There was always low-hanging fruit that they could point to.
Yeah.
Now finally they're pointing that finger within and saying, what can I do? How can I get better? What moment do I need to be prepared for? And find another level of focus that's necessary to win a ring. And so I like what I'm seeing from them. But that approach in being more zen is going to require more energy from the rest of the team. And that's where balance is going to need to come in. The young guys are going to have to provide more energy, and the old guys are going to have to provide what's needed when to get the win.
So, Tom, we have come up on the last topic. And right now, we've got Christian McCaffrey, who just got signed, okay? Juwan Jennings, who just signed his tender. Let's just go ahead and answer it. I want to say for good and for all, but we know that's a lie. We're going to talk about this more. But the poll right now is, will the 49ers re-sign Brandon Aiyuk before training camp, yes or no? And right now we have the poll results, which are 12 yeses and 8 nos. And by the way, guys, we're going to do polls every show. We're going to be able to bring many more mechanisms to the platform so you guys can interact. We're going to have QR codes up here so you guys can be able to tap in with different polls. We're going to have a lot of good fun up here, guys. I'm going to do giveaways. It's going to be good. But with the poll that we have right now, the link was in the bio. we have 12 yeses and 8 nos for Brandon Aiyuk will be signed before training camp. So, do you want to take the affirmative? Do you want to take the yes or the no? Or do you believe, or do you agree with the poll, or don't you?
I don't. I think it's no. There's an inertia to all of this where it's the Niners are not willing to pay Aiyuk market value. Aiyuk isn't willing to sign for anything less than market value, and therefore it gets dragged out. And the history predicts that they'll go into camp with Aiyuk not signed yet. And then the question is, okay, what happens at that point? And there's a couple of things. One, the rumors about Pittsburgh. Now, as you get to the opening of training camp, Pittsburgh is going to face a deadline where they will make their best offer to get Aiyuk now so that they get him at the start of their camp so that he can learn their system. After camp starts, they're going to be far less interested in dealing for him. So at that point, then it's, okay, we either extend him or we roll over the 5th year or we offer him a franchise tag now. One of those three. And so we'll see what happens, but my expectation is it's no. That Aiyuk, in my opinion, rightly says, this is my market value in the league, $27.5 million. Here's where it falls within the receivers where I'm good or I'm less than, and this is who I am. And it's either pay me this or trade me. And then the problem is you go to Lynch, who says, I'm willing to trade you, but only on my terms. I want a first-round pick. Nobody in the league offers a first-round pick. And so you're at a standoff, and it drifts. And I think that's what's going to happen. Camp is going to open, and it drifts. There's not going to be a resolution. And then it's a question of, okay, who does what? Aiyuk will have the option of saying that, I can sit out. And by the way, I can sit out for 11 weeks and still play the last 6 and accrue the season. Are the Niners factoring that in? In my opinion, not at all. And if Aiyuk says I'm going to sit, I think they're going to be shocked by it.
You think so? You think they'd be shocked if he's? I don't. First of all, I would not. I think
out
he does
11
it.
Weeks. I think. Oh, well,
okay. Yes, I'm not following. 11 weeks into the season, I think we'd all be shocked. Right. I think BA standing on that type of business, that's kind of personal then. I think actually that would open him up to being possibly a malcontent. Like if he did that. That would be, well, you're a locker room obliterator. Like we can't have you here. So I see from that standpoint, as far as I'm concerned on the poll, I'm going to go with yes. I think the Niners are going to get a deal done. And the reason why is because I feel like BA's number has to be in the realm of possibility. I believe that they're honestly probably getting over the divvying up of the guaranteed money. I think that that's what's happening right now. Because if BA was that far off right now, I don't think the Niners go into a season with BA knowing that there's absolutely no way that they're going to come to the table with him. What I will say is that I would have expected to hear a trade request from Brandon Aiyuk after this Christian McCaffrey deal. I would have expected that. Now, that's not to say that he hasn't done it privately to the 49ers and said, hey, I'd like to get acclimated with the new playbook right now, start shopping me discreetly. Let's see what you can do for me right now because you've obviously kind of let me know how you feel about us and my team with what you've given Christian. And that's no shade to Christian. It's just business. There's only so many pieces to the pie. But I don't really hear anything like that coming out of that side from BA's side. And, teams, that's just a lot of moving parts for somebody not to say anything about it. I really do believe that ever since BA has kind of kicked up dust on social media throughout the draft process, right before the draft that time, we really haven't heard much from him. And I would bet dollars to donuts that the Niners get a deal done right before camp. I think they're going to get him in camp.
I hope that's true.
Yeah. And it's a little bit.
Will the Niners do it? That becomes the question. I don't know if they are. Because they could raise the point, and some have said in the chat that, yes, his market value in the abstract is 27.5, but his market value to this team is less because he has fewer targets.
Right.
if I'm Aiyuk, my answer to that is that's a you problem. I need more targets anyway, and so pay me what I'm worth. I'm just wondering what's it going to take? Who's going to finally give? Is that Aiyuk is saying market value or bust? Lynch is saying that 22 million, and that's your value to us. And Pittsburgh is saying we're not giving you a first round draft pick. Nobody's getting what they want, and so who is going to compromise, if anyone?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the likelihood is nobody budges, and so it defaults to rolling over to the 5th year, and then Aiyuk holds out, and it's a question of for how long.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they sign him.
I mean, you're free to. I do not agree with you. You're free to spew your nonsense on this platform.
Okay. I appreciate that, Coach. You're right. No, it's just me shooting from the hip as always. But
I'm shooting from the hip as well. This is literally what we're doing right now. Like we're reading the tea leaves. Like this is not coming from anywhere, bro. This is a good question right here. Lee Ving says, if it comes down to a trade request, then the 49ers do you think the 49ers botched the whole situation? The whole negotiation, rather. Not if they were never going to get his number, right?
That's the key.
If the number was never realistic to begin with, and the entire quote unquote negotiation was really them trying to get BA to come to the table, like there's elements of negotiation, right? Where we can be amicable and say, hey, you think X, I think Y. All right. I could see why you want X. Hell no. You can see why I want Y. Hell no. But let's explain why you want X. I'll explain why I want Y. And then we'll meet in the middle on what we're willing to give each other. That's how we start meeting in the middle. But
that's how the Niners would like it to play out, but Aiyuk would not. I think that 27.5 is his floor. And so that's part of the problem, is that he's saying that you will pay me what I'm worth or else. And will the Niners have botched the negotiation? Not necessarily. It's more a question of if it comes down to a trade request, it's Aiyuk is saying 27.5 or else, and if I don't get it, then somebody else will pay me that, trade me to that team. But Lynch won't make that trade because he won't get what he wants. At each point, you reach some level of intransigence and stubbornness where every single player in this digs in. Lynch, I'm not going to dig in. I'm not giving you 27.5. Aiyuk, 27.5 or else. Pittsburgh, no first rounder. And so when you have that and people dig in and invest their ego in digging in, nothing gets done, and that's when it then defaults to 5th-year rollover. Yeah.
Niners have a lot of leverage in this situation. BA, I feel like maybe some people may see it as BA being arrogant for why he's going so high, but in a sense, maybe he's already kind of anticipating getting lowballed, and maybe he's coming in high because he wants to be able to even supplant for the leverage that he knows he's going to get leaned on. I mean, there's a lot of ways that this could be going, Tom, honestly.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But back to what I was originally saying is that if to answer Lee's question, I don't think the Niners necessarily botched the negotiations if BA's number was something they weren't willing to do anyway. Right? They could be spending all of this time to try to get him just to come to the table. Right? And that's a whole nother conversation. So I doubt he's being that, staunch on his standings or what he wants. I do believe that there were reports weeks ago when they were very far apart, and I expected them to be far apart, but at least they were at the table. That's the way I took that report. That you could be far apart, but that means they're at the table though. So obviously there's numbers being thrown around where at least they know where each other stand. That's kind of like half the battle in my opinion. So I will say, man, like I think BA coming in at like Waddle level is adequate. I think a Waddle type deal, 27.5, 28, around there, I think that would be okay. What do you think, Tom?
I think that's I think Aiyuk would take that, provided that the guarantees were higher than, say, what Amon-Ra St. Brown got or what Waddle got. So part of this is what's the guarantee structure. Part of it is how much you get paid up front. Part of it is just what's the total value of the deal, because there's going to be an ego investment, and Amon-Ra got 130 total, so I need to get more than that. But you can play with all of those factors and make it work. It's just a question of, are the Niners willing to move from 22 to 27? If they are, a deal gets done. If they're not, it won't be.
Understood. Well, Tom, it's been another good one, brother. How do you feel,
Great
man?
stuff, Coach. Yeah, this was a fun one. We got into some deep stuff.
This was a good one. What are you getting into, man? What's going on?
Oh, I'm working on my novel and trying to get some things done, so we'll see what happens there.
What's the name of that novel? What are we doing with this novel, man? What are we doing?
Oh, we can talk. That'd be a black hole of hope.
Oh, we can go there. Hey, I did want to speak.
Science fiction 2076, and I'll get into the rest of it over time.
We got to talk.
Then head down to the Olympic trials again in Eugene and go down 29th, 30th, last 2 days of the track Olympic trials in Oregon.
Definitely. Hey, Niner Gang, Daniel Defense, Delta Pro 5. It's a bad boy, bruh. Check it out, man. Check it out. That's what I ended up getting. So, Tom, as always, man, it's been a good one. We are going to be able to come back, have more polls, have more interactive things for the show, for the guests. Tom, you are the first and of my road dogs that have been on this channel, man. And we've been doing so much more good content, man. Hey, man.
Yeah,
Tom,
it's a privilege to be a part of it, Coach. I appreciate it.
Awesome, bro. And you know what, man? Everything that we have coming to us, we're going to get, man. We deserve it, bro. Hey, man, this is the Coach and Tom signing off. Stay low and keep your feet moving, man.
Keep moving.